My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 39, an accountant in Columbus, Ohio, and for most of my adult life I thought stable was the same thing as happy. On paper, my life looked solid. Steady job, modest house on a quiet street, a wife who didn't scream, throw things, or threaten to leave every time we argued. People at work knew Rachel as reliable Rachel, the kind of woman who never missed a deadline, never raised her voice in a meeting, always had her calendar color-coded and her expense reports clean. Our friends saw her as responsible. She was the one who remembered birthdays, who organized group dinners, who made sure nobody drove home drunk. When they looked at us, they saw a grown-up couple doing things the right way. No drama, no social media fights, no public meltdowns. Just two adults who paid their bills and showed up on time. At home, she was my partner. That's how I saw her. We split the small stuff, trash, dishes, grocery runs. We talked about work, about which neighbor was being weird, about whose turn it was to call our parents. We had our little rituals. Coffee every morning at the kitchen island before we went our separate ways, even if it was just 5 minutes. Burnt toast because I always got distracted with emails. Her rolling her eyes and scraping the blackened edges off, dropping some dumb joke that made the morning feel less like a grind. We had a list of baby names saved in a note on her phone. We'd pull it up sometimes on Sunday afternoons, lying on the couch, arguing good-naturedly about which ones sounded like future lawyers and which ones sounded like future baristas. We weren't trying yet, but the list made it feel like the future was already outlined. Like once we decided to step through that door, everything would just fall into place. There was a savings account labeled Future Trips. Every month, a little bit went in. We talked about London, maybe Italy, maybe just a cabin in Colorado for a week. The joke was that we were always saving and never going, but we said it like that was responsible. Sensible. Adults don't just jet off, they plan. From the outside, it all looked boring in the best possible way. No slammed doors. No police at the house. No plates shattered against walls. Our arguments were muted and short. About money, schedules, whether we were seeing her family too often or mine not enough. Nothing that felt like a threat. Nothing that made me think this could end us. If you had asked me then, is your marriage safe? I would have said yes without thinking. If you told me it was already rotting from the inside, I would have laughed, made some comment about how people watch too many TV dramas, and gone back to balancing someone else's numbers, confident that my own life added up just fine. Oliver Grant showed up in my life as a name over dinner. He's the new regional director, Rachel said, cutting into her chicken. They flew him in from the UK. Married, 5 kids. Apparently, he's some kind of turnaround genius. I pictured a tall guy in a too expensive suit, slick accent, polished smile. Another corporate fixer. I nodded, said the usual husband line. Good, maybe someone will finally see what you do there, and I meant it. She'd been grinding for years with barely a pat on the back. At first, Oliver was just work talk. How he'd reorganized a department. How he'd actually stayed late to help the team. How he'd told her she was undervalued and integral. That last word stuck with her. I could tell. She said it twice. You deserve that, I told her. And I did feel proud. My wife finally seen. Nothing threatening about that. But then the way she talked about him started to change. His name slipped into conversations that weren't about work. We'd be watching a show, and she'd suddenly say, "That reminds me of something Oliver said today," and then repeat one of his jokes or some little phrase he used. She'd mimic his accent, laugh a little harder than the joke deserved. First, I brushed it off. People latch onto new personalities, especially charming ones, especially when they've been starved for recognition. But her voice changed when she said his name. Just a slight lift, a lighter tone. I wasn't hearing that tone much when she said mine. I noticed the way she checked her phone more often. Screen lighting up at dinner. Quick glances. Half smiles. Thumb flying over the keyboard and then the phone face down again, like that erased the fact it happened. One night she was in the shower, music playing loud off her Bluetooth speaker. Her phone buzzed on the dresser. I didn't go looking for anything. It just lit up right in front of me. Dinner confirmed. Just us two. It'll be good to talk calmly. Oh, my chest tightened. But my mind didn't explode. It narrowed. She came out wrapped in a towel, hair wet, humming. I kept my voice level. "Big plans tomorrow?" I asked. She didn't flinch. "Yeah, dinner with Oliver. New project stuff. He wants to pick my brain without all the office noise." Like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like I hadn't just read the words "just us two." I nodded, pretending to think it over. "Work's work," I said. "Do what you need to do." On the outside, I was calm. On the inside, something small but important shifted. For the first time in 8 years, I didn't fully believe my wife was where she said she was going to be. After that "just us two" dinner, the air in the house changed. Rachel didn't come home at crazy hours, nothing obvious like that. It was quieter, colder. She started rolling in a little later than usual, blaming calls that ran long, or Oliver needing last-minute revisions. Technically believable, emotionally off. Her phone became an extra limb. On the counter while she cooked, next to her while we watched TV, the screen tilted away just enough to be polite and secretive at the same time. She'd smile at messages she never mentioned, the kind of soft smile a woman usually saves for the person she goes home to. Our talks about kids got pushed back without us ever saying, "We're not doing this anymore." One night, I brought up the list of baby names almost as a test. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Let's talk about that later," she said. "Work's insane right now." Later. Everything became later. On the couch, there were more silences than conversations. I'd look over at her and feel like I was watching someone from across a waiting room. Familiar face, no real access. I caught myself wondering when she'd stop telling me about her day and started telling it to him. One Friday night, after a dinner where we barely exchanged 10 real sentences, I put my fork down and said her name. "Rachel, sit down for a minute." My voice was steady. My insides weren't. She sat, arms crossed loosely, eyes already defensive. "I miss you," I said. "Not the body next to me. You. And I know something is happening with Oliver." She didn't deny it. That was the worst part. "There's something," she said finally. "He pays attention. He admires me. Feels good. But nothing physical has happened. I swear to you, Daniel. Admiration. Tension. Feelings." She stacked the words like a shield, as if because they weren't touching, it meant she wasn't cheating. I let the silence sit between us until it felt like a wall. Then I stood up. No yelling. No slammed doors. I just walked down the hall, opened the guest room, and lay down on that cold, unfamiliar mattress. First night in a separate bed in 8 years. Even if she was technically telling the truth, I knew it in my bones. The marriage we had before that night was already gone. I didn't know their names at first. I just heard about the girls from work. Later, I learned about them, Lindsay Brooks and Heather Collins. Both are single. Both are loud. Both experts on everyone else's relationship but their own. Rachel talked about them the way women talk about a new gym class, energized, lighter, a little reckless. "Lindsay says I've been wife mode since I was 22. She told me once, laughing. "She says I need to remember I'm still my own person. Nothing wrong with that on the surface. Everyone should remember who they are." But underneath the buzzwords and pep talks, there was rot. These two turned every lunch break into a sermon about freedom. Monogamy was a social construct. Marriage was security, not passion. Being desired by someone new was framed like a spiritual experience. A pilgrimage every woman deserved before she got too old. I didn't hear the actual conversations in real time. I only pieced them together later from messages, from what Rachel slipped up and repeated, from the way their names showed up around the same time my marriage started circling the drain. They told her one mistake wouldn't destroy a marriage if no one ever found out. That good men forgive. That she could have her excitement and keep her stable life too, as long as she was smart. Then the annual Summit West Company dinner came up. Corporate events, open bar, hotel blocks reserved, music loud, people scattered. A perfect cover for people who wanted to disappear for a couple hours. Heather joked first, Rachel later admitted that much. Something like, "If you and Oliver were ever going to sneak off, that'd be the night." They laughed. Then they stopped laughing and started planning. Excuses, timing, logistics, a fake emergency with a sick friend, a hotel room booked under a quiet name, while I was at home trying to patch holes, suggesting movie nights, planning lunches, asking how her day really was. She was already 1 foot out the door, letting their voices drown out anything that sounded like commitment or loyalty. By the time I realized how deep they'd pushed her, the plan was already in motion. There's a point where you stop asking, "Am I overreacting?" and start asking, "Am I blind?" I hit that point one quiet afternoon when Rachel left for a strategy meeting, and I was alone in the house with her laptop sitting on the kitchen table. I didn't pace, didn't wring my hands. I just pulled the chair out, sat down, and opened the lid. Her email was already logged in. I told myself I wasn't doing this as a jealous husband. I was doing it as a man who needed to know if he was crazy or not. There's a difference. The inbox was clean, too clean, but archived folders? Drafts? That's where people hide the things they don't want to delete but don't want in the open either. I started scrolling. First, it read like normal work talk. Deadlines, metrics, corporate nonsense. Then the tone shifted. Buried in archived threads and half-finished drafts were messages that didn't sound like regional director to employee. They sounded like two people playing careful with words, hoping the subtext would carry what the text couldn't. Best night of the year. I didn't want it to end. Next time, we'll make sure we have more than an hour. Same hotel as before. I'll confirm the room, dates, times, a room number. Comments about how they had to be more careful because Rachel deserves to keep her life intact. My stomach dropped, but my hands didn't shake. I just kept reading. Some emails were deleted on her end but still sitting in his replies. Little slips. References to the way you looked out of that dress. Or finally getting to touch what I've been thinking about for months. So much for nothing physical. Then I found the confirmation that tied it all together. A message about the Summit West dinner, followed by Oliver's reply confirming a room at a nearby hotel. Date, time, and a line that closed the door on any doubt. I'll let you slip out with your sick friend routine again. Just us. No interruptions this time. I sat there, looking at the screen, and something inside me went quiet. Not broken, just done. I didn't yell. I didn't punch a wall. I copied everything. Screenshots, emails, drafts. I moved methodically, like I was building a case for someone else. I saved it all to an external drive, labeled it something boring, and slid it into my desk drawer. Then I made a call. My Uncle Mike Dawson, retired detective, picked up on the second ring. I told him what I'd found. His voice shifted halfway through, from uncle to cop. "If you're going to do this," he said, "we do it right. No gray areas. No he said, she said. You understand." "I do," I said. Next came Josh Miller and Tyler Hughes. Friends since childhood. Both Army vets. Both men who understand calm under pressure. They sat in my living room that night while I laid everything out. The emails, the hotel, the lies. We didn't talk about revenge. We talked about evidence. No fists. No screaming scenes in the driveway. Just a simple, controlled plan to put the truth on record and let it burn on its own. The night of the Summit West dinner, my house felt like a waiting room. Rachel stood in front of the bedroom mirror, slipping into a dark green dress I'd never seen before. Not too flashy, just enough. Hair straightened, makeup sharp, perfume subtle and expensive smelling. The kind of effort she hadn't put in for me in a long time. "You look nice," I said from the doorway. "Company event," she answered, adjusting an earring. "Everyone's dressing up." I nodded, like I didn't know there was a hotel room already reserved 10 minutes away. On the drive over, she scrolled her phone, thumbs moving fast, screen turned just enough away that I couldn't see names. I watched the glow on her face, the small half-smiles. My hands stayed relaxed on the wheel. "Are you nervous?" I asked casually. "Just a lot of higher-ups tonight," she said. "And Oliver wants to talk about expansion targets." Right, expansion. The dinner was held in one of those hotel ballrooms that always smell like reheated food and old carpet. Round tables, white tablecloths, Corporate banners on stands, a projector screen at the front, a DJ in the corner trying to pretend this was a party and not a budget meeting with alcohol. Summit West liked to pretend it was a family. Spouses were invited, kids mentioned in speeches, loyalty praised between courses. Watching all those fake smiles, I wondered how many other people in that room were lying to the person sitting beside them. We did the usual rounds. Handshakes. Nice to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you. I played my part, the supportive husband who laughs at the right moments and asks bland questions. I'd seen Oliver's picture online. In person, he was exactly what I expected. Tall, tailored suit, controlled charm, the accent doing half the work for him. He shook my hand like we were equals for 5 seconds, then turned his attention back to the employees that fed his ego. Through all of it, I watched Rachel. The way her eyes found him across the room a little too often. The way her phone stayed on silent, screen lighting up in her hand, her gaze dropping to it like a reflex. Around midway through the evening, while people were picking at overcooked steak and pretending to enjoy it, Heather walked over to our table. She leaned down, put a hand on Rachel's shoulder, and whispered in her ear, "Showtime." Rachel's face shifted as she turned to me. Concerned, apologetic, rehearsed. "Babe," she said, touching my arm. "Heather's not feeling well. She thinks it's her blood sugar or something. I'm going to take her to the hospital to get checked out." I looked at Heather. She wasn't sweating. She wasn't pale. She was an average-looking woman in a cocktail dress pretending to sway just enough to sell the story. "You want me to come?" I asked like I hadn't read the script already. Rachel hesitated just long enough to make it seem real. "No, it's okay. Stay. Enjoy the night. I'll text you, okay?" I let a beat of silence sit there. Then I nodded. "All right," I said. "Go ahead. Make sure she's okay." Relief flashed across her face. She kissed my cheek, light, quick, almost grateful, and walked out with Heather, heels clicking toward the lobby, toward the elevator, toward the room number I already had written down. As soon as they were gone, I checked my watch, finished the water in front of me, and pushed my chair back. "Restroom," I told the table. No one cared. I walked out of that ballroom and into the parking lot, the bass from the DJ rattling faintly behind me. I sat in my car, pulled out my phone, and typed one simple message to the group chat with Uncle Mike, Josh, and Tyler. "She's on the move. The hotel plan is live." Then I started the engine and drove toward the place where my marriage was about to die on camera. The hotel sat 10 minutes from the dinner, lit up against the dark like every other chain off the highway. I'd been there the day before with Uncle Mike, walking the halls like we belonged, confirming the floor and the room number. The receptionist had already been quietly taken care of. Cash, no drama, one spare key. By the time I pulled into the lot that night, they were already inside. Josh's truck was parked 2 rows over. Tyler's sedan sat near the side entrance. I spotted Uncle Mike's beat-up car closest to the door. I walked in like any other guest, nodded at the front desk, and rode the elevator up without saying a word. We'd agreed on a simple plan. They'd watch the hall and the stairwell. I'd handle the door. No one runs. No one touches anybody. No shouting match in the hallway. Just clear, clean evidence. The hallway carpet swallowed our footsteps. The air was too warm, the way hotels always are. I stopped in front of the room I already knew by heart. Light showed under the door, then went dark. We waited 10 minutes. Not out of cruelty, out of certainty. Uncle Mike checked his watch, gave me a small nod. "Whenever you're ready," he said quietly. I slid the keycard in. The lock clicked, soft as a throat clear. I pushed the door open. What I saw didn't surprise me. My wife is in bed with her boss. Sheets twisted, clothes scattered, both of them frozen in that split second where pleasure flips to panic. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just stepped inside, raised the small camera in my hand, and let it record. Oliver scrambled, grabbing for anything to cover himself, stammering my name like we were friends. Whatever authority he wore in the office was gone. He looked like a scared kid who'd been caught stealing. Rachel's face crumpled. She tried to talk, to reach for me to explain the unexplainable. "Don't move," Uncle Mike said from behind me, his voice flat, professional. Josh and Tyler took positions by the door, blocking the exit, saying nothing. I kept the camera steady. No threats, no thrown punches, just the raw truth caught from every angle it needed to be. I'd walked into that room to erase my last excuse for staying blind. By the time I walked out, there were no excuses left. We left the hotel like we were walking out of a meeting. No yelling in the hallway, no scene in the lobby, just 4 men stepping into the night. Me with a flash drive in my pocket and 8 years of marriage closed like a file. I shook their hands in the parking lot. "Thank you," I said. No speeches, no chest thumping. They knew what they'd helped me do. On the drive back to the Summit West dinner, I felt strangely calm. Not happy, not satisfied, just steady. The worst part was over. Now it was about making sure there was no way for anyone to rewrite what happened. The ballroom was still alive when I walked back in. Music, small talk, fake laughter. People had no idea that one of their star managers had just been recorded detonating her career 10 minutes down the road. I went straight to the AV table at the back of the room. "Hey," I said to the tech guy, holding up the flash drive. I put together a little surprise tribute video for the team. Rachel's really been the heart of the office. Thought it'd be nice to show something. He didn't ask questions. Just plugged it in, queued it up, and gave me a thumbs up. The company president took the mic to ramble through some speech about growth and opportunity. At the end, he smiled and said, "And now one of our own has prepared a special video. Let's take a look." Lights dimmed. Conversations kept going at first. People only half paid attention. Then the first frame hit the big screen. Not a slideshow, not some cute montage. The hotel room, the bed, my wife, her boss. Clear enough that no one could pretend they didn't understand what they were seeing. The room went dead silent in under 3 seconds. Forks stopped. Glasses froze mid-air. Someone laughed, then choked it off when they realized it wasn't a joke. The president started shouting to cut it, but the tech hesitated just long enough for the audio to spill. Oliver's voice, Rachel's, panic and excuses and reality. Phones came out. People recorded. Even after the screen finally went black, the damage stayed. Summit West liked to call itself a family. That night, I introduced them to what their family had been doing behind closed doors. The video didn't go viral like some internet sensation. It moved quieter than that, inside inboxes, private chats, company group threads. It didn't need the whole world. It just needed the right people. By Monday morning, Summit West wasn't pretending to be a family anymore. It was a crime scene. HR called Rachel first thing. She left the house early, dressed plain, no makeup, like she was going to a funeral. In a way, she was. I didn't ask if she wanted me there. That phase of us was over. She came back 90 minutes later with a manila envelope and eyes that had cried all they could for one weekend. "They fired me," she said, voice flat. I just nodded. "Did you expect anything else?" She opened her mouth like she was going to argue, then shut it. Whatever defense she'd been clinging to died sometime between the video playing and the termination letter being slid across a polished conference table. Inappropriate conduct, breach of ethics, damage to company image. She recited the phrases like she'd been studying them. Like if she understood the words, the weight might feel lighter. "That about covers it," I said. She sat down at the edge of the couch like a guest in her own home. "Daniel, No, I cut in. We're not doing the speech. We're just going to handle the practical things." Her shoulders dropped. She knew what that meant. I'd already met with a lawyer that morning. Brought the drive, the screenshots, the printed emails. He went through it all like a mechanic checking a car. Professional, detached, focused on what was broken and what could be salvaged. "This is about as clean as it gets," he said. "You were smart. No violence. No threats. Just facts. Judges like facts. Can we keep this from getting messier than it has to be?" I asked. He looked up. "Messy is already done. What we can do is make sure you don't bleed in the process." We filed for divorce that week. Rachel moved into a short-term rental closer to downtown. She took her clothes, some books, and a few pictures. She asked if she could take the framed wedding photo from the hallway. No, I said. That stays or it gets trashed. Either way, it doesn't follow you. She stared at the picture for a long time before leaving it leaning against the wall. Summit West tried damage control. They put out internal statements about serious violations and unacceptable behavior from leadership. Officially, they didn't name names. Unofficially, everyone knew. The video hit private business forums next. Then a couple of anonymous industry blogs that specialize in corporate scandals and leadership failures. Oliver turned from turnaround genius into a cautionary anecdote in under 2 weeks. His wife found out fast. I didn't send her the footage directly. Someone did, I still don't know who. Could have been an employee, an assistant, someone in IT, a board member. It didn't matter. It landed. When her attorney's office reached out to my lawyer, it wasn't to coordinate. It was to say, we'd like a copy of everything. She had 5 kids, a big house, a life built around the story of a respectable husband who traveled for work. That story died in high definition. From what my lawyer heard through their side, Oliver's world collapsed in a sequence. Suspension, internal review, termination for cause, bonuses pulled, stock options frozen, future recommendations evaporated. The man who used to stride through offices giving orders was suddenly a quiet example in HR presentations about boundaries and professional conduct. I didn't take any joy in that, but I didn't feel sorry for him, either. He made decisions. I just turned the lights on. Rachel's orbit shrank quickly. Lindsay and Heather stopped texting her within days. No more empowerment talks. No more "you deserve to feel desired." When the fallout hit, they switched vocabulary. Toxic situation, distancing, protecting our careers. Funny how fast sisterhood ends when job security walks into the room. Rachel tried to call me a few times in those first weeks. I let them ring. When she finally sent a long text about closure and understanding each other, I gave her one clear answer: we'll talk through lawyers, not feelings. There were no more emotional conversations after that. Court was simple. My lawyer laid out the story in neat order: emails, texts, hotel booking, the video, the timing of the affair, the financial contributions over the years, the accounts, the house, the car. No embellishment. Just a straight line from "we got married" to "she chose this." Rachel's attorney tried to talk about stress, workload, and emotional neglect. They poked at me, looking for a reaction they could spin into unstable or controlling. I didn't give it to them. I answered every question directly. I looked at the judge, not at Rachel. When asked about the video, I described it clinically, like it was evidence in someone else's case. When it was Rachel's turn, she cried. Talked about feeling unseen, undervalued, disconnected. It might have landed if there hadn't been a room number and a recorded lie attached to her name. Judges see a lot. They can tell the difference between a marriage that eroded on both sides and a marriage where one person picked up a hammer. We got the ruling faster than I expected. House mine, car mine, retirement accounts, heavily in my favor. No alimony, no claim on future earnings. The judge cited egregious marital misconduct and documented intentional deception. When it was over, we stood there in the hallway outside the courtroom for a second. 2 people who used to share a bed now just shared a moment of silence. "Daniel," she said quietly, "do you hate me?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "I just don't know who you are anymore. And I won't build my life around someone I can't trust." She nodded, eyes wet, lips trembling. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking down the hall until the sound disappeared. The video kept circulating in certain circles for months. My lawyer told me it showed up in a training seminar he'd attended. Blurred, anonymous, but unmistakable. I started getting messages from people I hadn't talked to in years. "Saw something today that reminded me of you. Hope you're doing all right." I was not perfect, not healed overnight, but all right. I changed little things first. Cleared out drawers filled with stuff that wasn't mine. Repainted the bedroom. Took our wedding picture down and threw it in the trash without ceremony. Canceled the Future Trips account and rolled the money into an investment under a different name, Reset. I went back to the gym regularly, not as some revenge body project, just to feel my lungs work and my muscles burn and remember that I lived here, not in my email or my marriage or my anger. Some nights, people would send me the clip again, like I hadn't seen it, like I needed reminding of what had happened. I stopped opening those messages. I don't need the video anymore. For a while, it was proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the change in her voice or the distance in our bed. It was my line in the sand, the exact frame where denial ended and reality walked in. Now it's just a file that exists somewhere on hard drives and in private chats, passing between strangers who don't know the whole story. What matters to me is simpler. The door I opened that night in the hotel closed something that needed to be closed. It cost me a marriage, but it gave me something I should have valued more from the beginning: my own peace. I walk into my house now and I don't wonder who she's texting. I don't listen to lies in small talk. The quiet is different. It's not distance. It's space. Space I earned by finally refusing to pretend I didn't see what was right in front of me.